Hi! On the Woodpecker today, Alain finishes my beautiful Christmas gift.
With all the work I did in the first part, one might think that I'm almost done, but one would be very wrong. First of all, the bottom molding is not finished yet. And I have to sand the middle tier with its OG. But with my box filled with molding shape, it's not too hard to find one that fits any shape. And with all this sanded, I can glue two sections together and clamp them. While the glue dries, I still have more sanding to do. And a round over on the front of the door. And I'm not done sanding. Next, I can glue my last glue up to the bottom of the case. I try not to use too much glue. I don't want it to ooze all over. When the glue is dry enough, it's time to glue the bottom section. And again, when this is dry, I can glue the top molding and let everything dry overnight. The next morning, I'm ready to sign this. I begin by positioning the laser in the center of the back and burn my big logo. But this won't be visible unless it's removed from the wall. So I turn the back around and burn a smaller version in front. I also need to fix this. With the sandpaper, I managed to create a nice transition between the curved top and the molding. I also need to put the door in place. I begin by drilling some shallow holes in the center of the hinges, but it's not deep enough. Like most Canadians, I hate Phillips screws. You just give it half a turn and you can strip the head. So I pre-cut the thread with a square Robertson screw before screwing the hinges in place. I need to screw both hinges if I want to figure out the placement of the holes on the door. Then I can pre-drill the door. Cut some threads and screw the door in place. And it's only here that I realize that the door cannot close. The top molding is blocking the door. To fix this, I begin by routing a round over on the top back of the door. This will help for the transition of the chunk of wood I have to remove to get the door to close. Now the door can close. But I'm not done with the door. It still needs a hole for its small pull. And a big shallow hole for the magnet plate, which will keep the door closed. Perfect. It's only missing a hole for the screw. I have to do the same thing on the case now. But on this one, I set its depth before drilling. This will be perfect. But it's missing a hole. I want to inlay the glass turns. To do so, I begin by tracing their shape where I want them on the door. Then the inlay is cut with the CNC. I have a lot to cut, but it's not too long, only 33 seconds each. I only add a small indent for the center. Now I have to drill for the screws. Now I can try this. The screw hole is not big enough. The screw sticks out too much. I drill a bigger hole and chamfer it with a bigger drill bit. It's perfect now. I can screw the back to the case. I begin by drilling and screwing a screw in the center at the bottom and the top. Then I drill all the rest of the screws. But this is solid wood. I want to add elongated screw holes. So I elongate each hole with the scroll saw. Looking at the weather, it's not obvious that it's only 2 days before Christmas, and I need to give something half decent to Renée. I cut all the sharp corners, and I'm ready for the finish. I begin by vacuuming the top of the workbench. Then I clean it. I want to make sure there's no dust lying around. I do the same thing to all the pieces of the clock. And after that, I can wipe the finish on. I want something close to the wood grain, so I use Danish oil. This is not too complicated. I wipe everywhere with a shop towel. When I'm done, I use a clean towel to make sure there's no drip and wipe it again. I leave it like that for the rest of the day. The next morning, I can put it all together, beginning with the back, then the glass, and put the door in place. And to make this look even better, I clean the glass. This will be Renée's Christmas present. I only need to wrap it now. This year, I want a special card on top of her present. And here's Renée on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And yes, she's right. I still have to put the mechanism inside. So I go into her office and bring the clock into the shop. Remove the clock itself. I thought this would have been the only thing I would need from the clock. But when I put it inside my box and put the door on top, I have cold sweats. The door won't close. And all this is because of the shaft that holds the clock's arms. On the original, the glass is cambered. I need to reclaim it. First, I remove the glass I got. Then the cambered one. And I'm careful because it's the only one I've got. But it's too small for the opening I made. I need to cut a ring to put around it. When it's cut, I stain it brown. Now I can cut some walnut for the clock support. But it's only here that I realize that the straight support won't work on the top. I need a curved piece. So it's time to go back to the CNC and cut a curved top. Yes, the shape is perfect, but it will be impossible to screw it in place like that. So I need to add some kind of support. After drilling a hole on top, I can use a center finder and figure where to drill the holes on the curved piece. Then this can be glued together. I leave it inside the vise while the glue dries. I need more wood to hold all of this to the case. After finding out where this should be screwed, I drill pilot holes. I use a stop. It's not a good time to go through the case. And screw both supports in place. And this is how the mechanism will hold in place. But all this also needs to be screwed in place. Now I'm ready for the clock. First, I place it in the center of the door opening. When it's done, I trace around the support so I know where the clock should go back. I also screw the thing that makes the hour rings. And drill pilot holes for the clock support and put it in place. it's time to check if the clock still works. Okay, no trouble so far. But I'm not done with the camber window. I need to glue the ring to it. To do so, I use epoxy that I spread with a toothpick. Because of the window's angle, there's a small V between the glass and the ring. I just fill it with epoxy. When I'm done, I remove the excess epoxy with acetone. And the next day, I can try this in place. Okay, almost perfect. I only need to sand a little bit on each side. I'm super careful. I need to be gentle with this. Haha, perfect now. But I need to add more glass support. I trace where I should add more and go back to the CNC. But I'm not done with my glass problems. I still need to cut this glass. To do so, I trace the shape of what it should be on the masonite piece I used for the glass. After cutting it a little bit wider, I make sure it's smooth. And check if this will work. Since this seems to be alright, I use the pattern to cut the glass. I'm far from being an expert in glass cutting. So when I try to crack the glass where I scratched it, well, it broke in half. Okay, for now, I'm not too worried. This can still work. In the end, I managed to cut it to my liking. I just need to polish the cut. I'm super happy. I managed to salvage the glass. It's perfect. But I'm not totally done. I still need to cover the mechanism. Just like that. And the first thing I do is to cut this cardboard pattern. On top of that goes the dials. And to do this, I'm going to use this that I've kept from another dresser that I've torn apart. But since it's reclaimed, I have a bit of work to do. Now I need to glue this walnut veneer onto my reclaimed wood. To do so, I spread the thin coat of glue on the veneer and another one on the plywood, put both pieces together, add a sheet of parchment paper on top, put a straight piece over this, and clamp all this onto the workbench. I just need to let this dry overnight. The next morning, I can remove the clamps and look at the result. It's far from being close to good. It's hard to see on the camera, but I have a lot of small bumps all over the veneer. Well, I'll use it anyway. I cut part of it to the width I need. Then I use the pattern I made to trace what I need to cut and cut it. Haha, perfect. I'm almost done. But I still have to fix all of this to the clock. First of all, I screw the spacer in place. When it's done, it's time to screw the piece I've just cut. And the last thing is the dial. But I need to drill some holes for the miniature nails that holds it in place. And with this small hole, I can align the nail inside and drive it in place. But I don't drive it all the way because I need to dismantle everything I just did. I need to apply some finish on all the pieces I've added after Christmas. After wiping all the parts, I need to wait until they dry. Then I can screw the anchor that will hold the clock to the wall. And everything else. I have another problem. The pull screw head won't allow the door to properly close. I need to do a little bit of sculpting. And with a bit of Danish oil, it's almost invisible. The door closes and the clock is all finished. I only need to hang it to the wall. After putting an anchor on the wall, hang one side of the clock, check to see if it's level. I can mark where the other anchor goes and screw it to the drywall. Finally, the clock is hung on the wall. This is what I did to Renée's last year as her Christmas gift. And I hope you liked it as much as she liked her clock. And see you soon for another episode of the Woodpecker.